All right. Hello, hello, hello. Hey guys, so today what we're going to be talking about is subtracting integers. Okay. This should not be on page 14. This should start on page 21. Okay. So you should be looking on page 21 in your note packet. Okay. Because they made some changes. So this is on page 21 in your note packet. Okay. All right. So now what we're going to be talking about is subtraction. And we've been talking about the number line, right? So since we're talking about the number line, let's look at some things we know and some that maybe we don't know. So we want to talk about today, this lesson is how do we do subtraction and how can we turn subtraction into addition to make it easier. And so there's reasons why we want to turn it into addition so that we can use commutative property, all right? So let's look at this. I'll talk about some of the commutative property in class, but I mean, basically what it comes down to is if we have 4 minus 3, is that the same thing as 3 minus 4? And it's not, because we can't commute. This means we move these numbers. But if we say that we have 4 plus negative 3, if we have 4 plus 3, we get the same result if we have 3 plus 4. That's the principle of commutative property. Okay. And what we want to be able to do is eventually we need to be able to use commutative property. So if we're going to be able to use commutative property, we need to be able to turn things into addition. So let's look at this first and just look at this first problem. So you have 24 minus 14. You've written that down, which means now we talked about in class that this number line really is just kind of general, right? So I know I'm going to go down, so I'm going to start up above. And what I want to do is go down 14. Now on this one, maybe we can. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to say we're subtracting 14, right? And that means we're going down. And that means we land at 10. And you all knew that, right? But my question is, what would we add? Remember we were talking about adding cold and it drops the temperature, right? If we add positive hot, it makes it go up. So what would we also be able to add to this to get that? So we had to add cold cubes, right? So if we're going to add to 24, we've got to add negative 14. And that will give us that same result of 10. Okay, so we want to just remember this is what subtraction looks like, but what we want to be able to do is rewrite this so that we can say that's the same thing as 24 plus. We get the same result if we add negative 14. Okay, so if we look at 6 minus 9, okay, if we just have 6 minus 9, then what we're going to do is we're taking away the hot, right? We have 6 hot, and we're going to take away 9 hot. So, because that's what this means. This means taking away 9 positives. So you need to remember that's what that means, taking away 9 positives. Because if we were taking away negatives, it would be 6 minus negative 9. That's what it would look like to take away 9 negatives. Okay, but that's not what we have. We have 6 minus 9. That means we start as 6. That's what that tells us. That's our starting point. And we're going to drop 9. So we're going to go down 9. There we go. Now, where we're going to land, though, we got to be careful. We got to know what we're doing. We got to figure out what we're talking about here. So if I look, I'm going to go down. This is going to take me 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And then negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. So 6 minus 9 equals negative 3. Now we would get the same result if we added negative 9. So if we added negative 9, this is what it looks like to say we're subtracting 9. But if we're adding negative 9, that means we're still gonna go down. We're adding 9 cold cubes. So this looks like adding negative 9. We get the same result. Okay. All right, you should be writing this. Hopefully you're using the colors I'm using, but you're writing this out because we're trying to really get to where we have an understanding. If you got questions, you're just not getting it, you're still drawing it, right? So at least you're using part of your brain to draw this. You're drawing it out, and maybe you're over here on the left writing out what your question is, what you still just don't get about it. Okay? So if we have 12 and we're taking away 16. Well, if I'm at 12, that's where I start, right? So I'm going to have 12 and I'm going to take away 16. That's taking away 16 positives. So I'm going to drop down 16. So it's going to look like that. We're going to go down 16 steps. Now, if you didn't do those 16 steps, you're okay, but I'm doing the 16 steps so that you guys can see that what we wind up with here is, because I'll have, this is 11, then 10, then this is 8, this is 6, this is 4, this is 2, this is 0, this is -2, and -4. So we wind up at -4. So 12 minus 16 equals -4. Okay. And so then our question is going to be, what could we add? And hopefully you're seeing a pattern while you're doing this. But so now our question, because we're trying to learn how to we're going to rewrite subtraction problems as addition problems, right? So what we want to be able to do, what would we add to 12 to get -4? To get the same result, what would we add? So we look, we're still going to drop down to -4. But we would add -16. We'd add 16 cold cubes, right? To drop our temperature. We'd be adding -16. Now, hopefully you're seeing this relationship here, that you're starting to see, oh, there's a pattern here. Because that's what we're after, Roy, is can we see the pattern when we're doing subtracting of integers? Okay. So we're going to do a couple more here. So write these two down. We're going to talk about what this means, because if you notice, we have the first one is -12 minus 4. And the next one's going to be -12 minus -4. So, and remember, we're still trying to figure out, can we rewrite these things as addition statements? So again, I'm pretty comfortable. It's just a 4, so I'm just going to put my -12 in the middle, right? Because that's the number I'm starting with. Both of these numbers start with that, right? And then if I subtract 4, then you got to just think, which way do I go when I subtract? Remember, this is subtracting +4. So I'm going to subtract 4 here. That's the direction I'm going to go when I subtract +4. I'm taking 4 heat out, right? So where do I land? Well, where is 0 at? That's the first question. If you want to really understand this number line, you got to draw this out, and you should understand where 0 is. So 0, this is going to be -10, right? This is -10. This is -8. This is -6, -4, -2, and 0. 0 is all the way over there. So if we're going this direction, right? If we're going this direction, then it's getting more negative, which means now we have -14 and then -16. So -12 minus 4 equals -16. And the number line helps me see why. Okay. And then what could I add to -12? That's the next question. If I have -12 plus what would also give me -16? And so if we look at that, then what we would say is we're still going the same direction, but now we're just saying this is adding what? And it would be -4. And so if we added -4, if you were at -12, You wanted to get to negative 16. What would you add to negative 12? You had 12 cold cubes, and now you got to put 4 more cold cubes in to get negative 16 on the cold cubes, okay? Well, so what does it look like when we're subtracting a negative? So again, we're at negative 12, and we know 0 is over here, right? We've already drawn that out. But if we added if we subtracted 4 positives and we went to the left, if we take away cold, all right, if we're taking away cold, what are we doing? We're adding, we get the same result if we add heat. Okay, so we're adding heat, that's a positive. So we're going to go negative 12 plus 4. So we're going to add 4, which means we're going to go this way 4. And so that means we're going to have, this is negative 10, this is negative 8. So when we subtract negative 4, we're going to get to negative 8. So this equals negative 8. Because when we subtract positive 4, or when we add positive 4, we go to negative 8. So what we're saying here is that negative 12 minus 4 gives us the same result if we have negative 12 plus negative 4. And if we have negative 12 minus negative 4, we get negative 8, which would give us the same result if we had negative 12 plus 4. Okay, so before we get started, hey, do you know why 6 is afraid of 7? Yeah, because 7, 8, 9. Yeah, that's why. Okay. So, all right, so let's look at something else here. So go ahead right now. Now this should look familiar because it's pretty close to what we were talking about on the last lesson. But if you do these right now, just look at this, 9 minus 13. What do you notice? These two both start at the same place, right? But on this one, we're going to subtract positive 13. And on this one, we're subtracting negative 13. So we should, if we're taking away heat, that's what this one would be. We're taking away heat. What happens to the temperature? Yeah, it goes down, right? So that's what we're going to look at. So let's draw this. So we're going to call this 9. And when we subtract 13, we're going to go down, right? And we're going to go down 13. It's going to take us 9 just to get to 0, right? So just think about that for a minute. It takes 9 to get to 0. And then we're going to go down 4 more because we're going to go down 13, right? So we wound up at negative 4. Now, if you need to do those hoop-de-hoops, make sure you're still giving me over here that we're subtracting 13. And then what we're talking about, we want to know how could we rewrite that as 9 and write that as an addition statement. So if we're adding something and we're going down, then we're adding positives, right? So if we're adding negatives, then we're going to get the same result if we added negative 13. Okay, and then that's going to give us the same result of negative 4. Okay. So let's look at this. If we're subtracting negatives, we're starting at 9, right? But we're subtracting negative 13. If you're subtracting cold, what's happening to the temperature? Does it go up or does it go down? And if we're taking away cold, we're going to go up. So this is what it looks like when we're going to subtract negative 13. Okay? And if we go up there, that means we've gone up. What's another way to write that? How would we write that as an addition statement that'll get us the same result? Well, if we go up 13, it means we're going to be, here's 11, here's 5, here's 13, here's 15, here's 17, here's 19, and here's 22 is where we wind up. So we're going to equal 22. What would you add to 9 to get 22? And we're going to add 13, right? So we get the same result if we add 13. You should start seeing a pattern here. That's what we're after, is for you to see that pattern. So I think we're about done. I want to see if you could predict what would we add to negative 9 to get the same result if we subtracted negative 13. And what would we add to negative 4 to get the same result if we subtracted negative 3? So that's your assignment, just to figure out what that would be. Have these notes, and let's see what we get when we come back to class. Okay, you know what? Just want to cover one last thing with you. You know why the fraction was worried about marrying the decimal? Yeah, because it would have to convert. All right. Hey, have a good day. See you later.